Okay. Thank you for joining our session, second day for the NCA regulations. During this session, we are discussing the ECC, the essentials cybersecurity controls developed by NCA, National Cyber Security Authority, which is responsible for developing standards and controls and checking the mandatory compliance in Saudi Arabia for the government section and CNI infrastructures. Last session, day before yesterday, we had the introduction for the NCA regulations, and we discussed a lot of concepts, which it will be very nice to review it very quickly right now to refresh your memories and to start the new session today on a clear and rigid background. Of course, we mentioned that the NCA regulations, or the one which we are discussing right now for the ACC, it is built on controls. We are built on controls. There are no requirements, and this is normal. There are some standards all over the world which we are not standard. We don't have requirements. We have only controls, as in BCI TSS for protecting the financial activities or payment activities using the credit cards, also as HIBA, HIBAA, which is related to the protecting the security of the health information. These are only controls when we are looking for the controls. In some standards, we are saying even if you don't have the risk, you must have the control as well. And even if I don't have the risk, but even if you don't have the risk, you have to implement the control. We highlight that the Saudi Arabia and ACC controls are valid only for the government sections and for CNI. These are the domains where the controls must be implemented to be compatible with or complying with NCA regulations. We discovered that the regulations and the ACC document, it consists of 5 domains, 5 main domains for governance, for cybersecurity, for availability or resilience, for third party, and finally ICS for industry and control systems. And each one of these domain, we are split into subdomains. We are split into subdomains. We have a total of subdomains, 29 subdomains. We have 5 domains, 5 main domains, 29 subdomains. When we will be the subdomains, it will be split into controls. It will be split into controls. We have 114 controls. We have 114 controls. And finally, the controls, it will be split into sub-controls. Then this means that usually when we are speaking about the regulations, the NCA regulations and control, you will find that it will consists of any control or sub-control represented by 4 numbers. The first number, it will represent the number of the main domain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The second number, it will represent the subdomain. Then the third number, it will represent the control number. And finally, the fourth number, it will represent the sub-control number. This was the quick introduction or summary for what did we had last session, and now I will share the screen and open the standard to start domain number 1. If you can remember, when I open, I will show it to you that they had in domain number 1 almost 10 subdomains, and we will go through all the controls for all these subdomains. It takes some time because I'm trying to share box.com over the Zoom. Then I have to make some steps till I will be able to share the screen. Hopefully it will come now. It starts to open. I don't know, it takes longer than it should be, but we have to wait. You know, the problems of the technology, and sometimes it may be a problem with the internet connection. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to reopen the file once more. Okay, just I want to refresh your mind and remind you with the structure of the ACC document. We have 5 domains, and this domain number 1, where we have the governance. And as we mentioned, that the governance is a very important topic in any organization, where it makes sure that you are implementing the policies and the standards as documented, and there is no deviations from what is expected by the management. In the governance, we have 10 domains, and I think we will be able to finalize these domains today. Then the second topic, it will be the cybersecurity defense. We will have 15 sub-controls. Third one, the resilience, and we have only one one control. Then we have the third party and cloud computing, and we have 2 controls. And finally, we have the industrial control systems, cybersecurity, and have only 1 control. Let's start now. This was a quick refreshment for your mind about the structure of the ACC document, and we will start now with the controls and domain number 1. Of course, before I continue, as we agreed before, we are encouraging the questions. Interactive discussion is very important. Please feel free to ask your question at any time, or if you don't want to ask the question verbally, you can post it on the chat, and usually I am monitoring the chat, and I will answer all your questions in the chat, inshallah. Okay, well, let's go to the first domain, cybersecurity strategy, and this, it will be, as we mentioned, related to the first domain, the governance. Here, look, here, this is the domain number. This is the domain. This is the domain. And then you will find the number 1. As you can see here, this number 1, and here the cybersecurity governance. You will find here, gentlemen, some points which it seems that it is very strange, and you will not think it is important. But believe me, when the people are developed this standard, we had a real situation in the field, and they know they have some problems which you have to be aware about. I will not speak about these things, but I will highlight these things one by one when we start the discussion. First thing, the cybersecurity governance, control. What is the objective of this control? The objective of this control to ensure that the cybersecurity plans and goals and initiatives and projects are contributing to compliance with related laws and regulations. We want to make sure that all the cybersecurity plans and the projects are compliance with the related laws and regulations. It may be NCA regulations, it may be GDPR, it may be any other standard based on your organization field, and so on. Right. What are the controls? Now we have in this V, what is this? Can you know what is the name? What is the name of this one? This is the domain. And what is the name of this one?
Subdomain.
Subdomain, that's right. This subdomain one. Subdomain one, cybersecurity strategy. And you will find here 1-1. 1-1. What does it mean? 1-1, it means that this domain number 1 and this subdomain number 1. You will find here we control 1-1-1. As we mentioned, when we'll have -1, when this it will be the subcontrol. Will be subcontrol. In some situation, you may find control and subcontrol, but in this one you have only control. What is the control? You will find all this information, it will be repeated later. What is this information? That the strategy must be defined, documented, and approved. This is step number 1. Without having a strategy or policy, you will not be able to do anything, my friends. And this, you have to keep it as your Bible. If you want to implement the security, you must have security policy. If you want to have risk management, you must have a risk program policy. If you want to implement BCMS, business continuity management services, you must have a business continuity policy or a strategy or program, whatever it is called. This it will be very important. And you must have the policy. Policy, it must be there. It must be documented. If it's not documented, then it is not there. And please, in some situation when we were visiting our customers, when we are saying with CISO or the security managers, we are telling, I have everything in my mind, I have my back. Wait, please don't continue. Please don't tell me that you have everything in your mind, because if you have anything in your mind, this will not be enough. Because when you start to put this on a paper, you will find that there are a lot of things which you may miss. And unfortunately, the other persons in your organization, they will not be able to go inside your head to understand what is our security policy. Then, as a rule, not only for NCA, this for your security life, we must have documented policy. You will find this, it will be usually written in all the clauses. The policy or strategy must be defined, documented, and approved by the management, of course. It is very important, and this is one of the main requirements, that it should be supported by the management. It should be supported by the management. By the way, in ISO 27001, in the requirements or the clauses, you have clause number 5, it's saying leadership commitment. The leadership must be have a commitment for this policy or for implementing this policy. They have to provide the required resources to implement it and support it. We have to provide the policy itself and approve it. We have to provide the resources. We have to conduct the importance of this policy for the organization. We have to review it. We have to make that it is achieving the business goals and objectives. And we have to have an input and support for this policy. And here in this point, it's not a brand new topic for us, because if you have an experience about the ISO, you will find that the ISO, they require this information. In ISO, in clause number 5, number 1, you must have a policy. Number 2, management support. And these are mentioned in control 1-1-1. Okay. The second control, the roadmap must be executed to implement the cybersecurity strategy. Yes, this is very important. Why? It is not enough to have a policy. It is not enough to say that I have a security policy or a strategy and it is already published over the internet. This is not enough. This will not do anything. But you must have a plan to implement this policy. Otherwise, you will not be able to comply with the NCA or any other regulation. And this is one of the main problems which we found in our customers. The customers, we hear that it is very important to have a security policy. For example, when they will go to the internet, they will download a paid or free security policies. We can make some modifications and tailor, and we will say that, yes, we got the security policy. Great. And we published over the internet. Great. Then, plus, it's done. We have security policy. We are ready for it. Ready for what? You have to implement the security policy. You have to make awareness for training for the security policy. You have to prepare your team and make the right competence for the security implementation. You have to implement whatever the requirements mentioned in the policies to protect the data, to be compliant with regulations, whatever the objective of the policies which you have. And this is the second thing which I told you when I started the session today, that there are some things which you think that it should not appear in the standard, but unfortunately, no, it should. Why? Because there are a lot of organizations, they don't have a documented policy. Some situation management, we are not sign it or approve it, but only it will be signed and approved when there will be an audit, internal or external audit. Then this means that, okay, let's have the policy approval. You must implement it, and commitment from the management. Also, the third control, that it should be reviewed periodically. Because in security management, my friends, we follow the concept of Bdca. Did you hear about this before? It's called Bdca Cycle. What is it? Did you hear about this before? Do you know what does it mean? Bdca Cycle? Anyone?
Yeah, plan, do, check.
Yes, plan, do, check, and act. This which we call it the continuous improvement. Step number 1, you have to plan your target or your exercise. You have to define what are the objectives, how you will implement it, and so on. Then you have to do it. You have to implement it. Then you have to check it if it's achieve the objectives which you defined in the plan phase or not. Then if it's not, then you have to act. This means that you have to make whatever any corrections or any modifications, and the policy, it will be able to achieve the requirements as defined. Then this why we are calling review periodically, because the policy, we will not be able to say that the policy it's already once developed and it will not be reviewed again. There may be some situation which you are forced to be reviewed to change the contents. For example, suppose that in your regulation as NCA 2 years ago, we did not have the NCA regulation. We did not know about it, but now we have the NCA. Then this means that we have to update our policies that we have to be compliant with the NCA, for example. Or when GDPR it was announced in 2015, then again we have to be 2018. In 2018 we have to be compliant with the security of GDPR, because as I mentioned in the policy you will find the objectives, and objectives it may be compliant with the standards or regulations and the laws. This it was the domain subdomain number 1. This it was subdomain number 1. Subdomain number 2, it will be the cybersecurity management, and this we are still under the domain of the cybersecurity governance. In the cybersecurity management, what is the objective? The objective to ensure authorizing official support in implementing and managing cybersecurity program. This is the point which we highlight before. We must have direct support and leadership commitment for our cybersecurity policy and implementation. And again, this is a part of the ISO 27001 and the NIST SP 800-50. Here in control number 1-2-1, you will find a very important point here, gentlemen. A dedicated cybersecurity function must be established. Then this, it make a big difference in the implementation of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, it cannot be a part of IT. It cannot be a part of IT department. This, it should be separate, dedicated cybersecurity function, which is a division or department, and its manager may be CISO, it may be security manager, whatever the name. He should be reported direct to the CEO or VP or whatever. Then this control number 1, and this is very important, because this, I know a lot of companies, they change their structure to be compliant with the NCA. Why? Because NCA mandates that there must be a dedicated cybersecurity function. Why? Because there is a conflict of interest. Usually the security people, they should protect the IT, and we have to discover the bugs and the problems in the IT. If there is an IT manager and the security manager under his authority, the security manager, he will not be able to show that the IT is not implemented based on the best practices, or we have problems, or and so on, because he is reported to the IT manager. Then this, it can create conflict of interest. And also we found in the market that when the security manager, he is under the IT authority, he will be concentrating on the what we can say, the operation area only of the security, and not the other things which are related to security, as incident management, as proactive approaches, and so on. Then these are the reasons why the cybersecurity division must be dedicated and separated from the one from the IT, I mean. Okay, the second control, that the CISO or the security manager, he should be full-time and experienced, and he must be Saudi nationality. This again, the requirements for the NCA. He must be dedicated full time. Don't say that we have a great security manager working with us part time. He is visiting our office 2 days per week. This is not acceptable by the NCA. He must be full time, experienced. He have to prove his experience, and he must be Saudi nationality for whatever any governance organization, sectors, or the CNR. The third control, that there must be a steering committee to be established. We must have a steering committee to be established. What is the steering committee? The steering committee is usually the same as the committee which we explained when we explained the change management. This, it will be a committee, and there will be a person from each division or department. He will be a part of it, and of course it will be under the management of the maybe the CISO or maybe VB or whatever, based on the structure of the organization. And we have to make sure that the security programs and initiatives in the organizations are defined. We have to define roles and responsibilities, and we have to approve and document all these roles and responsibilities. This means that if you are, for example, a new person join the company, then you must receive a paper to tell you what are from you. If you have any policies, you have to sign for it. If you have some training awareness sessions which you should attend, and so on. Then, number one, we should have a dedicated department. We must have a dedicated security manager, and we must have the steering committee to manage the security issues and infrastructure in the organization. In sub or in control 1.3, this is the third control. First control, it was the cybersecurity strategy, then cybersecurity management. This means that you must have a strategy, you must have a policy, you must have a management support, where you have a team, you have organization, you have a manager, so on. And we will have the third issue, which is the cybersecurity policies and procedures. This, the policies and procedures, of course, this we start to go technical. As you can see, as I mentioned to you before, you will find here the policies and procedure must be defined and documented. Plus, we agreed. Why we mentioned defined and documented? Because in some situation it may not be defined. Okay, then fine. This must be defined and implemented. In the second control, it should be implemented. It's not enough to define and document it and you published over the intranet. This is not enough. Then what do you require? I want to implement these things. I must implement these policies and procedures. In control number 3, that the cybersecurity policies and procedures must be supported by technical security standards. Technical security standards. For example, here when you will say technical security standards, he means technical security controls. It may be firewalls, it may be operating system security, it may be application security, it may be VPN security, it may be IBS, whatever. Then these are the technical security which it should be available to protect or to provide support for these policies and procedures. Then finally, the control number 4 in subdomain 3 is the must be reviewed. Again, you will find 1, 2, 3. These are repeated in all the controls. We want to make sure that you have a policy or a strategy which is already defined and documented. They want to make sure that it's implemented, and finally, they want to make sure that it's the policy and the procedures, the strategies, everything, it's reviewed periodically. Do you have any questions? Any questions? Okay, then we will start the subcontrol, the subdomain number 4. Subdomain number 4. What is subdomain number 4? Roles and responsibilities. What are the roles? What are the different roles? Can you give me any example of different roles in the security field? Hi, my friends. Anyone alive? Hello, can you hear me? I am a little bit surprised. There is no response from your side, and I don't know, is this the topic, it's boring, or you are sleeping, or what is the situation actually? Okay, my questions. What are the rules which can be related for the security field? What are the rules which it can be related to the security field?
Is it like permissions, refills?
When we are saying rules, means that it's function. Yani persons, he have a rule. Maybe managers, employees, third parties, and so on. This is what we mean the rules. This is what we mean the rules. Rules, we are the persons or the entities who are responsible for the implementing the security. It can be internal and external. We can say the top management, functional management, employees, customers, partners, and so on. And even if the customer, you would say that he should have some responsibilities. Yes, of course, he must have some responsibilities. And for example, if I am working in a bank and I have to mention to the customer, please don't share your password with anyone. Your password, it will not be requested by the bank employees and all this stuff. This is his responsibilities. And you have to clarify to them, this is the reason why you are receiving an email from your bank, and they telling you, please don't share your password, please try to change your password every time, and so on. These are your responsibilities for implementing their security infrastructure. Okay, what are the controls under the roles and responsibilities? The under rules and responsibilities, as we defined, or as we mentioned before, must be defined, documented, and approved. As usual, it should be supported by official authorizing official. This it will be a management, and it should be reviewed periodically. we don't have anything else, because in this task it's very easy. You have to define what are the roles. The roles, I have to define the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders, internal and external? Okay, who are the internal? Internal, we have the top management. You have to explain to them what are their responsibilities. You have to define the functional manager. You have to define the employees. You have to define the external stakeholders as management, as vendors or customers or partners. For example, you are sharing information with these vendors and partners, when we have to protect this data and we have to provide the minimum security controls required to protect this data and to prevent leakage of this data from their side. And this it will be one of their main responsibilities. You have to define all these information. Of course, if you have some information which it will be critical and you are afraid that it can be shared or not, then it's very easy that you can include NDA while you are sharing this information with any external party. Okay, in sub-control, in subdomain 5, the risk management. Risk management. Now, risk management is very important, gentlemen. And you know that the risk management, this is a backbone of any security program. And please, if you have any security program in your organization and it's not built on risk management and it's built on best practices, this is not the right approach. It's not the right approach. You may miss some risks which you don't know about it. It is very important to define the risk management program. Risk management, it will help you to define the assets, the value of the assets, how to protect the assets, what are the vulnerabilities of the assets, what are the threats for the assets, what are the risks for the assets, what is the risk level, and what are the assets which priority and the risks level which we have to have highest priority and have the controls. Then what are the best controls which you should implement and how we can monitor these risks. This is very important. Please don't think that if I don't have a risk management, still I can have a security program. Yes, it can be, but this will not be the right thing. You may miss a lot of things which you are not aware about. Of course, risk management, it's very important, and you find that in the risk management that it is a part of the ISO. We have a complete document 27005 how you can implement the risk management guidelines, and there are a lot of methodologies to implement. Okay, now you will find the same things which we highlighted before, the controls, that it must be defined, documented, and approved. It must be implemented. I will not repeat this because this will be our time. The subdomain 5, it has a control number 3. What is this control? This control, it will say that it must be implemented, the risk management should be implemented at least in the following cases. Yes. When the risk management, it should be implemented, at least it should be implemented yearly, once per year, except if you have some other occasions, like what? Early stages in technology projects. You have any project for technology, you want to implement a new application, you want to implement new manufacturing line, whatever the type of the project, this it will help you the risk management to highlight all the risks, and this will be very great to minimize the risk level and choose the correct controls to minimize the risk. Also, before making any major changes in technology infrastructure, Now I have my ERB application. It's version 1. We have to upgrade it into version 2, or I have a network, and this is standard network and or the traditional network, and I want to update it into software-defined network, or I have MPLS communication, WAN communication, and I want to change it, for example, into SD-WAN connections, and so on. These are considered major changes, because it will affect the operations and performance, and you must perform the risk management to make sure that these changes, it will not affect the operations and organization's goals and objectives. Also, you have to run risk assessment during the planning phase of any third-party service. You want to obtain a third-party service. It may be a cloud service or managed services. Then you have to perform a risk management assessment to make sure that you covered all the risks and you chose the proper controls related to these third-party services. Also, during the planning phase and before going live for any technology, services, and products. Don't confuse between 1531 and 1534. This in early stages of technology projects. Then during the planning, if we consider the Bdca cycle, then we mention in subcontrol 1-5-3-1, this it will be in planning. 1-5-3-4, it will be in the act, in plan, do check, in the check. When these are the risk management controls. Not here, my friends. In some situation, I will tell you that what is the subcontrol 1-5-3-2. 1-5-3-2, this means that it is domain number 1, and we are working in domain right now number 1, which is the cybersecurity governance, and it is subdomain number 5. And subdomain number 5, which, what is it? It is the cybersecurity risk management 1-5. Then control number 3, this control number 3, which is the risk assessment procedures, and the number 1, this it will be the sub-control. Because what is a control? The control, this is the control, the risk assessment procedure. Now the sub-controls, it is the 1, 2, 3, 4. Then this means that we have 4 sub-controls here in this control. Okay. Then we will come to the standard control, as we agreed, to be reviewed period. Okay. In subdomain number 6, in the main domain security governance, the cybersecurity in IT project management. We want to make sure that the security, it is a part of IT project management. Then I don't want to check the security after I implement the product. This, it will be a crisis. Security, it must be a part from the project management methodology from scratch. Why? Because we want to protect the CIA, confidentiality, integrity of the IT assets. It is very important to make sure that the cybersecurity, it's a part of the project management, IT project management, to protect the CIA of the assets. As usual, you will find that here the cybersecurity must be included in project asset. The cybersecurity, it must be included in project and asset change management. You must have what are the security requirements required. Because in some situation, you may have a project for implementing software, you may have a project to implement a network, you may have a project to implement a module in software, you may have a project to implement or to choose a third party, when each one of them, it has its own security requirements. Not all security requirements are the same. Yes, we are fulfill the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But for the applications, for example, I will tell you the application, we have to check the data entry and data checking and operation checking, and we have to make the testing and so on. In network, you have to check the performance, you have to check the encryption, you have to check the delay. And each project has its own requirements. In this case, we have to define the requirements, and this it will be very important. It will be very important because by the end of the project, you have to get all these requirements and make check. Are these controls matching? Are these controls matching the requirements? If yes, then the project succeed. If it's not, then the project failed. Then the second control that the cybersecurity requirements in project and assets change management, it must include at least the following. What are the things which they want to be included in these projects? Two subcontrols. What are these subcontrols? Vulnerability management, where you have to find vulnerability and to remediate it, and conducting the configuration review and securing and hardening and batching for the changes. This is what you can see it as a batch management. And for these projects, you have to make sure that you have vulnerability management and you have patch management. What is the difference between vulnerability management and patch management? Is both of them are the same? What is the difference between vulnerability management and patch management? Are both the same? What is happening today? Today you are totally different from yesterday. Yesterday it was a very interactive discussion. What's happening today? Right. I will tell you something, gentlemen, because this is a way I will not be able to continue in this way. Let's have our break for 10 minutes, then we will continue, and I hope that you will be in better shape than what you are doing now. If we will continue in this way, then it will be better to terminate the session. Let's have 10 minutes break, then we will continue. Thank you. software between these two applications or components must be performed using security protocol. Don't use HTTP, use HTTPS. If an application collect monitoring information, don't send it on SNMP version 1 or 2. Send it on SMP version 3 because it's encrypted. Don't accept data from any application without authentication, and so on. Also, you have to conduct configurations, review, and secure configuration. And you have to hardening and patching before the software is going to live. This is very important, and these points are related to the software. Of course, these are the minimum requirements, but there may be other things. It may be a testing, what will be the testing methods, is it dynamic or static, how we can test the data entry, what are the vulnerabilities which we have to take it in our consideration, for example, SQL injection or in general injection attacks, and so on. Then finally, control number 4, it will be the to be reviewed periodically. And as we mentioned, that all the requirements in project management must be reviewed periodically, because of course in project management you will not be developed these requirements for each project. These requirements, it can be developed once, and it can be in form of templates or checklists, and this can be applied for the projects. These checklists, it can be reviewed annually, or if there is any major change or during any project, if you discover that one of these requirements it's not enough, or it requires other update or whatever, then you can add it as external update. Okay, then you will find the control or subdomain number 7. Subdomain number 7 to be compliant with the standards, laws, and regulations. And note here, of course, when you say standard laws and regulation, it depends, because it may be with NCA, it may be international, it may be whatever. It depends upon your field. It depends upon your field. Then in control number 1, the organization must comply with the related national security laws and regulations. Here he is speaking about the national cybersecurity. Is related to national cybersecurity for Saudi Arabia. You have to be compliant with Saudi Arabia cybersecurity laws and regulations. Control number 2, that the organization must comply with any national approved international agreements and commitments related to cybersecurity. GDPR, for example, because of course it should be approved by Saudi Arabia. And GDPR, of course, it's approved by Saudi Arabia. And what if you have any international agreement which is agreed by Saudi Arabia, then you have to be comply with it. And one of these examples is the GDPR. Then we will come to the subdomain number 8. Periodic cybersecurity review and audit. This is very important. Again, review and audit, this is very important, and it's a part of the ISO 27001. You must have an internal audit, and this is a part of the continual improvement. It's from performance evaluation. It's a part of the performance evaluation. It is a part of the performance evaluation. What is the audit? That you must review your implementation, and if it's matching the standards and policies as it's documented or not. If there is any deviation or non-conformity, then it should be updated and corrected. In control number 1, you must have review conducted periodically. In ISO 27001, for example, they are saying if it have, we did not define the period, and even here we did not define the period. We are saying periodically. It may be once per year, and this it will be reviewed by the management. And the management, they will review the internal audits and internal audits report and make sure that the continual improvement of the policies and procedures. then again we review cybersecurity review. It's a very important task, and the top management should be involved. Here in control number 2, we are saying that we audit, it should be done by independent parties outside the cybersecurity function. It is not independent parties mean that it will be external audit. No, it's still internal audit. But we mean that it is not the IT department. It's not the security team. I will not make audit on myself. There should be a separate, dedicated, independent entity which it will be responsible for the internal audit. It will be responsible for the internal audit. And this internal audit function, it should be reported to the CEO or the top management, not to the security administrator, not to the CISO. No, it should be reported to the CEO. The results of the cybersecurity audit must be documented and presented to the steering committee. You remember when we mentioned that there should be a steering committee, and this steering committee, it will be a committee which have a representative from each division, department, and we are responsible for managing the security infrastructure and issues in the organization. When these reports, it should be prepared and provided to the management and the security steering committee. In item number 9, we will cover the cybersecurity in human resources. Human resources, it is a very important department here from point of view of security. Why? Because security, what is the main objective of the security? To protect assets. To protect assets. And people, we are the main asset which we want to protect. People, we are the main asset which we want to protect. And here you will find a lot of controls. You will find here a lot of controls. For example, control number 1, it's mentioned personal cybersecurity requirements prior to employment, during employment, and after the termination must be defined, documented, and approved, and implemented. This is standard which we define, which we must be defined, documented, and implemented. The only thing which we want to add here, in human resources, my friends, we have the 3 phases. We have 3 phases. Phase number 1, prior to employment. Before the employment, you have to make an interview. You have to check the background of the employee. You have to check if he is the right person for this job, and the history of this person in the market, if he have any records against him, hacking or maybe criminals or whatever, and if he have what is his history in other companies, and so on. And during the employment, you have to provide him the training, you have to provide him the policies, you have to explain to him exactly what is his role and responsibilities, and keep an eye on him and improve his career. And finally, after the termination, you have to make an exit interview. You have to make sure that he signed the NDA for protecting the information and the assets for the organization even after he leaves the company. In control number 3, there are some requirements. The sub-control 1, it's inclusion of personal cybersecurity responsibilities and non-disclosure clauses. And non-disclosure clauses in the employment contract. In employment contract, you have to add what are the responsibilities and the NDA required by the employee. This is very important because now, usually what is going, okay, we will have awareness, we will have sessions, we will provide it to users we are not caring, some of them are not attending, and so on. But these responsibilities is defined in the contract of the employee with the NDA clauses, then this means that he has to read it very carefully. Because this, it will be what we can say, it can be financial or it can be law restrictions. We have restrictions here. If we have any problem, then he will be subject for some financial penalties or maybe cases or whatever. Then this, it will be very important to be included in his contract. The second condition, and please note that when we are speaking about this control 1-9-3, this he is speaking about period to employment. Before employment. Before the employment, we have to add the cybersecurity responsibilities and non-disclosure agreements in the contract. Also, you have to make a screening or vetting for the candidate. You have to make a screening for the candidate. You have to make sure that he is he does not have any criminal records. He doesn't have any bad experience with other companies. He is suitable for the title and so on. Then when we will come to the control number 4, which is the during employment, you have to provide him the cybersecurity awareness. This is very important. And you have to implement and comply with cybersecurity requirements as well, in the form of policy and procedure. We have to explain to them what is required in the form of policy. For example, a policy for acceptable usage of resources, or acceptable usage of the internet, or the email, or the encryption, or the data, or whatever. And these are the information which he must have very clear in his hand in the form of procedure and policies. Then you will find here in control number 5 that it should be reviewed, and the personal access information, it should be reviewed and removed immediately upon termination. Upon termination, you have to remove his username and password, then he will not be able to access these resources after he receives the termination letter. Finally, in control number 6, to review periodically these requirements. In control number 10 in governance, the cybersecurity awareness and training programs. The cybersecurity awareness and training programs. Control number 1, that cybersecurity awareness program must be developed and approved, and it should be implemented. And again, here we have some issues, some controls. We mentioned that you must have security program, you must be implemented, but we have to include these things. What are the things which you include? Awareness for email services, awareness for mobile devices and storage media usage, secure internet browsing, and secure use of social media. These are the things which at least it must be included in the security awareness. Then this means that if NCA come to your organization and they ask to see the awareness program from your company, and they go through the contents and they did not find these email services awareness, mobile devices awareness, storage media awareness, usage awareness, internet browsing security, and social media security, then this means that it will be a finding, and they will tell you, please update the security awareness program to be compliant with the NCA regulations. Also, you have to essential and customized training sessions for these people. Faction person who are working on software development and information, and supervisor. There is one point here, my friends, which is one of the main problems which we are facing in our customers. But when we are saying you have to develop a security awareness, they will go and develop one program, and this program, it will be conducted for all the categories of the employees. And unfortunately, this is the wrong one. Why? Because you have different categories. You have employees, you have managers, you have top managements, you have board of directors. Then you, of course, for email, for example, mobile devices, storage, internet browsing, social media, all this information are common for all of them. It's common for all of them. Then it will be common for all the fields. And suppose that I will distribute the categories of the security awareness into general, employees, management, or mid-management, and the directors, board of directors. I have 4 categories. Of course, the general one, it should be conducted for all of them. We have this information for all of them. But the other information for people, it will be totally different, because if you are doing security awareness for security people, of course, it will not be similar to the normal stuff. It will not be exactly as the people who don't have any experience in the IT field. It will be totally different. Then this means that each category, they have their own field which are interested in. And this, you have to cover this information. For example, let's take the part of the top management or the board of directors. Do you think that we have to explain to them what is the importance of a firewall or so and so? This is not important to them, but you have to explain to them what is the importance of a policy, because they have to approve or develop a policy. They have to lead the company to implement the security policy and show to them the importance of this security policy to them, and so on. And these are the points which we will be interested in. We have to understand the role in assigning resources. We have to understand what are the type of resources. We have to understand the importance of communication. To communicate the information about security to people, to internal, external stakeholders, and so on. Also, we have to be aware about the importance of the competence, and we have to be aware about the importance of the awareness, and so on. And these are the things which we should be aware about, and it should be highlighted in the training and the awareness session. We are not caring about the things which it will be very interesting for security people or for normal employees or maybe manufacturing people and so on. And for example, when we are doing for manufacturing people, it will be totally different for manufacturing people. We will explain to them the security, physical security, how to protect the site, if there is any fire, how to use the network, and so on. But these are the elements which we have to be included. And as you can see here, we define that there should be technical or awareness session for functional personnel, for persons who are working in software and information technology, IT. You can add from your side also another for people who are working in manufacturing, for people who are working in security, here for executives and supervisors and so on. And finally, you will find to review period. This we covered first domain. We covered first domain. The second domain is the cybersecurity defense.